special guest in the studio today. But before I tell you who he is, I'll just give a bit of a preamble about things. Now, they're the angels in orange, as we might say, men and women from the SES who give up their time to help people when such things as a tree crashes through the bedroom of your home, or it gets flooded and so forth. So here to tell us all about that, he's probably seen it all, fixed up everything, helped everybody out, is a man who is the unit commander of Bankstown SES unit, and his name is David Niven. Hello, David. How are you?
Oh, great, John.
Be an idea if I put you on. Can you hear yourself all right?
Well, maybe try again.
Yes. Hello, David. Very welcome to the program. Thank you for your time, by the way.
No worries, John. Thank you.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because you probably get ribbed about this an awful lot. You've got a very famous name there, very famous. Do you do any acting in your spare time?
No, between work and SES, that keeps me more than happy and keeps me busy enough.
I see, fair enough. But you were telling me off air that you've, might bring this in a little bit as well too, you've done a bit of research on your family name and you've found some interesting things, have you?
Yep, so I'm just doing a bit of the family history, and I think we've got back to 1717 back in Glasgow in Scotland, so if you can work it out from there, I've probably got red hair and pale skin.
I tell you, he hasn't, folks. He doesn't look like a Scotsman.
No, as the saying goes, mate, it's all good.
Indeed, indeed. Now we'll get back to what I initially brought you into the program to discuss the SES and the fabulous work that you men and women do. Let's face it, the community just couldn't function without you. Just the invaluable time and effort, your skills that you put in. Now, I wanted to talk specifically about we had that. We call it a mini tornado that ripped through Chester Hill last month. Can you tell us a bit about that, maybe from the point of view of what happened and how you responded to it?
Okay. Well, it sort of started, there's obviously the week leading up to that proceeding had a lot of bad weather, and there was the start of the Hawkesbury Nepean flooding as well. And there was also some minor flood warnings on the Georges River. So
you had an inclination that there might be something might get really busy for you then?
We knew that it was going to get busy.
Yeah.
We just didn't know how busy and when, and exactly when the impact of the main event was going to, the main weather was going to hit the unit or the area. So what we did was we actually went and dealt with the first things first. During the week there was a few minor calls and minor jobs. And then what we did was, as the event progressed on the Saturday morning, we basically on the Saturday morning when we were getting there, we actually came up with a few teams and a few jobs and not too much. And then on that Saturday morning, coincidentally, my wife is actually the duty officer, so she was on call.
Oh, so you keep it in the family there.
Absolutely. So that's another story.
Yes.
But so we met there. But anyway, we're up at the unit, and just all of a sudden there was an influx, about 11:30 a.m, and it was just, everything was from Chester Hill. And I actually got a phone call from a neighbouring unit, Auburn SES, and Auburn said, wow, like something's happened in Chester Hill, because we just saw on the radar a very red little couple of mini cells go through there, and a couple of our members, volunteer members, actually still live up in that area. And I said, well, that makes sense, because we've got a massive amount of influx of jobs. And I think it was in about, maybe about 2 to 3 hours, we had the best part of 300 jobs.
Wow.
Or requests for assistance, as we call them, up in that Chester Hill area.
Yes.
And it was widespread over the whole Bankstown area, but in particular up there, I'd say best part of 200 of the 300 were in effect around Chester Hill, Villawood, and a bit of Sefton.
Can I ask you, would it be sort of blowing it up too much to say it would look sort of something similar to a war zone, or what had happened?
Actually, it looks a bit like, so the footage you saw from the cyclone in WA.
Ah, right.
And Cyclone Yazi and a few of those things in the eastern suburbs, hailstorms in Sydney. It looks a bit like that.
Yes.
There was just tiles everywhere, debris, trees snapped off like they were just matchsticks. down one particular street, I think from memory it was Esme Street. One side of the street had pretty well most of the roofs removed, and the other side of the street, the windows were missing from the houses because they'd been sucked out by the pressure and the force.
Gosh.
So it's sucked out of one side and the roofs were fine, and the other side of the street they had nothing.
And would I be right in saying all this drama that goes on in this destruction in less than a minute? Would that be right?
Yep.
Wow.
So it actually sort of imagine like a kangaroo, I guess. It sort of touched in one spot and then it sort of jumped a couple of streets and landed and sort of touched down again, and then it sort of jumped a couple more and did a bit more damage. So it was actually 3 main streets that were damaged.
Yes.
And obviously the minor damage in between that. So it's quite significant when you actually got there, and
yes,
you just see like the whole street, every house damaged.
I was going to say, do you get to a situation where, God, where do I start?
Actually, we did. So we did what was, when we in our incident management team, we actually created sectors.
Yes.
So we basically had, we sort of went from the pipeline to Woodville Road down to Hector Street, and then back to the Hume Highway, and that became a sector known as the Chester Hill sector.
Right.
And then we had the rest of the Bankstown side of Canterbury Bankstown as the other sector. So we basically said, all right, we got 2 sectors, and we put the teams into the sectors and said, right, instead of just going from house to house, in some areas we had to sort of jump between streets and jobs and that, but in other areas we just went with the Rural Fire Service and Fire and Rescue in New South Wales. They had their task forces come in.
So how many men would you say that you, and women, would you say you had at ground zero there at Chester Hill at that time then?
Oh, over 100.
Wow. Geez.
Yeah. So there's in excess of 100 in Chester Hill in that area in those 2 days. And like I said, we originally got stuck into it, and for the task forces we actually just gave them and said, well, here's your street. Yes. Start at one end and work your way through till you get to the other end, and come back to us when you finish that.
Wow. And tell me, what was the reaction like for the residents when you turned up? What was it like? Huge elation, I bet.
It was very mixed, because some were very jubilant, going, oh, great, thank you so much, very sincere and appreciative. And there are other people that were like, I told council that tree was going to fall down. I told the landlord. I told the insurance companies, and I told that neighbour. And I'm going, well, look, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we can't help you with that. What we can do is help you now that the actual storm has impacted your property and the tree is down.
Yes.
We can help you then.
Yes. I suppose it's the initial shock of what has happened, and then they get to realise that, you folk are there to help them,
Mm-hmm. So that's the important thing, is that the SES is only there to provide temporary repairs.
Sure.
We're not there to, tarp the house this week, next week, and every month go back and re-tarp or re-secure the tarp. No, that's the residents and and I'll say agencies, whether it be community services or the landlords or real estate agents. It's actually up to them to accept responsibility for their own properties.
Yes. And did you have any sort of new people who were, I should say, so this is their first big job, and what was their reaction?
Well, that's actually where the phrase "Angels in Orange" came from.
Yes.
We actually had a couple of new recruits that sort of joined last year. Didn't really get far because of COVID. And with those people there, it was like, well, they've trained, and we've drilled into them professionalism and how to manage themselves, and they never got to do anything for nearly a year and a half now.
Wow.
And when they finally did get to get out with the teams, to hear something like that come back, it's like that's why they joined, and that just becomes the whole, why did I join? What am I doing here? And the community's appreciation, and that's the amazing thing when you get that, because we're all volunteers, myself included, in that. Yes. That's the thing that we do. We're there to help people.
Yes.
And to get a comment like that is just really, it grounds us and gives us appreciation of what we're actually doing, and then shows that it is value for the community.
Yes. So when you talk about the preparation and so forth, David, what sort of time are you putting in training for it? And I suppose you have to be a certain fitness, level of fitness?
So we generally train at least 2.5 hours a week. So it's normally Tuesday nights we do our training, 7:30 to 9:30. But then there's additional training courses that are on weekends or within other areas within the Sydney metropolitan area. And as you progress in your membership, we have different skills and tasks and training and career developments, we'll call it, within the SES that vary from operating radios and communications through to being in the flood rescues and being in the fast-flowing flood rescue, flood water and equipment and the specialist tools that you need to use.
Yes, yes.
Regarding the level of fitness, excuse me, again, that comes down to what your role or what you feel comfortable doing. We do fitness awareness and fit for task, and these are basically assessments where the awareness is basically an exercise activities, probably about, say, 10 or 12 activities, where you get to learn about yourself and your capabilities, whether it be balancing or lifting or carrying or walking or something. And then we go, well, based on your fitness awareness, you need to think about where you may be or where you want to be in the SES as a volunteer.
Do they come with the volunteers, do they come with any preconceived ideas about what they should be doing? In other words, trying to tell you your job, I suppose.
Oh, look, some people do. They actually use it and go, well, I'm here to put the lights and sirens on and race down the street to the car accident. I'm going, well, actually the SES does do that, but not in Bankstown.
Right.
So in rural New South Wales, the SES actually are the primary, and they do a lot of primary rescue, so road crash rescue.
Yes.
But that's not. There's different agencies, so police and ambulance, fire and rescue, and SES. So mainly the fire and rescue and SES and ambulance share the roles of the road crash rescue across New South Wales. So we actually we don't do that in the Canterbury Bankstown area.
Yes.
We do flood rescue and obviously storm damage, which are probably, I'll call it our bread and butter, so to say.
Yes, yes. And you were saying about that. How long have you been involved with the SES then?
I joined in August 1986, so it'll be 35 years in August this year.
Wow, gee, yeah. And you mentioned your wife was involved in it as well, which makes it easier to do, I suppose, if you're knowing that you're both involved in things. Like, how long has she been involved, and what did she do?
Well, exactly the same. So we both joined in August 86.
Ah, right. Okay.
Just before the floods on the Georges River.
Yes.
And we've been in it ever since, and we've got two boys that have come and gone and been a little bit involved, and they've learnt some of the things that we've taught them about storms and floods and how to handle themselves in situations, and so they've grown up and moved on. And so my wife's currently the operations officer at Bankstown unit, and she gets involved in what we call the on-call officer or the duty officer. So obviously we're all volunteers and we monitor the phones 24/7.
Yes.
I have a team of about, I'll say 15 that are involved in the on-call officer rosters, so we have to provide coverage 24/7.
Yes.
And she gets involved in that with, basically taking the calls from the community, ringing them up, talking to them, and determining what they need to do or what they need. And if we need to attend the site, we'll all go out and attend the site, or whoever may be. We'll call someone to go and have a look if they need be, or we'll go ourselves.
Yes.
And so yes, she was actually in charge of that Chester Hill sector for that event on the weekend.
Wow, fantastic job, absolutely fantastic job. Can I ask you what over the years that you've been with the SES? Can I first off ask you? Is there any particularly funny episode that sort of springs to mind? A little anecdote.
Oh, look, we've had some very interesting ones where people have called us up for a tree down across a driveway, and we ring them and they go, yes, it's a tree, this tree. And it might be that English isn't their first choice of language.
Ah, right, yes.
But then there's lots of people like that, but irrespective, it was our adamant this was a tree. We turned up and it was a branch about 4 foot long and not even as big as a pen, just a very small branch.
Yes.
So we've done. So we've had a bit of a joke about those ones, and we also get the bit of a joke about, well, you could be driving down the street, say through Padstow here, and a call comes in, and I'm just happen to be driving past the house at the time, so it's the quickest response to a request for assistance you've ever seen,
And that has happened, has it?
That has happened multiple times.
Oh, gosh. That's amazing.
Or you might be that it's your next door neighbour. That happened actually last Tuesday night. I think it was last Tuesday night. The next door neighbour behind our property where we live at Milperra,
Yes.
a truck drove down the street, connected the power lines and pulled the whole front off the house. And so the police attended and basically said to the lady, well, you need to call the SES. So she called the SES and the wife and I went, we know that address. Turned up and that was the neighbour.
Oh, dear.
So you get a few funny little stories like that with
Yeah.
family and friends that you just think,
Yes.
yeah, makes a bit of a chuckle.
Yes. And what would you say over your time there would be about your most challenging one? Would the Chester Hill the recent incident be the most challenging, or have been other times that you can think of?
I'll say probably within the Kennerby-Bankstown area, February 2020. So the floods just after, so we had the bushfires. We were heavily involved with the bushfires all across Sydney Metropolitan. The whole unit was. We had basically the bushfires, then we had the flood straight after that, and then we went straight into COVID.
Wow.
So I sort of think that period of time from, say, December 19 through till now
Yes.
has been very challenging to basically get people involved, keep responding, keep supporting the community. And I've got to say, it's an amazing group of volunteers at Bankstown.
Yes.
They're just, we've got so much multicultural and we're so diverse, and we actually get engaged and we talk to the community. Unfortunately, we still can't do the school fetes and community fairs and things like that because of COVID, but
Yes.
We're definitely out there. We're always available. We're there to support the community.
Yes. So while we've got you talking about that, do you want to do you have sort of a day coming up where you're open to the public and you're telling people about what the work that you do?
Actually, we're not allowed to quite yet, but we do actually. So anyone can volunteer to join the SES.
Yes.
They just go to the SES website, which is www.ses.nsw.gov.au. Top right-hand corner, there's an orange button that says volunteer, and you click on that, and anyone's welcome to join. If you've got particular skill sets, so say you're a builder or a carpenter or something like that, and well, you'd rather go and do what's called storm damage and field operations because you've got the knowledge about the structural stability of a house or a building if it was tree falls on it.
Yes.
That's suited to you. If you've got someone that wants to do HR or administration work or something like that, then they're the people also. They're more than welcome. Like people with planning roles or administration and that really want to help but don't want to go out and get cold and wet and catch the flu. That, again, there's always a position for pretty well everybody.
Yes. Now, if there's a big incident on like the Chester Hill one, what sort of shifts would you be doing? I mean, I presume you'd be doing more than an 8-hour shift if it called for something like that.
Yeah. So again, there it's pretty well a 12-hour shift minimum.
Yeah.
So the crews and that, we have to make sure we manage the fatigue.
Yes.
Because remember, they're out in that rain and they're cold, they're wet. So we try to make sure that there's hot food, and if we can, we have clean, dry clothes. But that's not always possible.
Yes.
We have some clothes dryers that they can use to dry their clothes while they're up at the unit.
Yes.
But typically, it's normally at least a 12-hour shift.
Yes.
6 till 6 or 7 till 7, and there may be an overlap subject to what the operations are.
Yes.
We try not to work sort of past midnight if it's an extended event because fatigue sets in, plus all the residents get a little bit upset with chainsaws at 1 and 2 a.m, especially if they've got little children.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need to be mindful of the residents and obviously the fatigue and that of our members.
Yes. Yes. So tell me, when you're not out doing your bit in the community like that, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies?
Oh, well, I actually love doing woodwork and metal work and a lot of gardening. I can sort of grow pretty well anything in the backyard, and that sort of keeps me busy, and get about camping if I can and fishing, and some of those things that just help you relax, and you sit there and you think about life and go, probably shouldn't have done that.
Yes.
Or, geez, I should do that next week.
Yes, because I imagine with doing the kind of work that you're doing must be the adrenaline rush, and then afterwards you must really need something to sort of centre you, as it were.
Yeah, you need that time to stand down and reflect and just think about what it is and make some personal notes, whether it be in your diary or just, we have things called after action reviews, which were basically what would be, if the event happened, well, what did we do? What did we do well? What can we do better? So you make those notes about your diary and what you can do for next time, and then we discuss it as a group and we implement strategies to make sure that next time we're better prepared.
Indeed. Well, look, it's been lovely talking to you, David. Thank you very much for giving us some of your most valuable time. And anyone who would like to join the SES, David's just giving out that number again, and we might ask you to give that again, just in case people have missed it there, where they can join up.
Yep, so there's two ways. First one is to go to ses.msw.gov.au and click on volunteer, or you can ring 132 500, and that helps you out with floods and storms, and you can also volunteer through there.
Thank you so much, David, for your time, and continue on doing what you're doing. You're doing a fabulous job, you and your teams as well.
Great. Thank you very much, John.